I'm Nick Alcock here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'd like to talk a little bit about the breath machine and 5 different ways to attack a breath result. If you get pulled over for a DUI, typically there are 2 options that are presented to people, and they may not have a choice. Police officer will say, look, you need to blow into this machine. If you don't blow into the machine, we're going to take your license away. Or they'll say you need to submit to a blood test, and if you don't submit to a blood test, we're going to take your license away. The breath machine is losing popularity with the police departments because the breath machine, or the Intoxilizer, has a number of problems. And there are individual variations with people that result in changes or a greater margin of error with this machine. And I'll give you an example. Breath temperature can drastically affect the result of an Intoxilizer machine. So if your breath is a couple degrees warmer than somebody else, not that you're running a fever, but just the breath, the temperature of the breath coming out of your mouth is a little bit warmer, then the breath alcohol concentration can be that much higher. So a 2-degree rise in your breath temperature can increase your breath alcohol concentration by 10%. The analogy is sort of like the pot of water on the stove. The hotter the pot of water, the more steam you're going to see rise from it. The hotter your breath is, the more likely it is alcohol is going to transfer from the blood in your lungs into in the veins in your lungs into the air in your lungs. So what else? How else do you attack an Intoxilizer machine? Well, if you hold your breath before you blow into an Intoxilizer, you can get in big trouble, because when you're holding your breath, it allows more of that, again, that alcohol to pass from your veins and arteries in your lungs into the air. And the more you hold your breath, and when people are crying and they're upset, they can actually really increase their breath alcohol concentration as much as 15% by holding their breath. Same goes for the opposite goes for hyperventilating. If you hyperventilate, you're blowing that alcohol in and out, you're cycling it more, and you're going to see a 15% up to a 15% reduction in your breath alcohol concentration. Then we look at things like mouth alcohol. Some people might vomit a little bit into their mouth before they blow a machine. These machines are very, very sensitive, and so a little bit of mouth alcohol, a small amount, can just completely destroy essentially the validity of an Intoxilizer machine. There are variations with regards to the amount of red blood cells that people have. The higher the number of red blood cells, the higher the breath alcohol concentration. Now, this isn't, you give 2 people identical height and weight, the same amount of alcohol, the person who's got the higher number of red blood cells is going to have a higher breath alcohol concentration. That's not particularly fair. And then finally, there's the concept of partition ratio. And partition ratio is an assumption that for every molecule of every part of alcohol in your blood, there will be some percentage of that will be present in the air in your lungs. So the analogy there is, say you take a bucket, you fill the bucket with water, you pour a bottle of vodka in the water, and you cover up the bucket with saran wrap. You're going to see a little bit of that alcohol in gaseous form in the airspace in that bucket. If you pour another bottle of vodka into the bucket of water, you'll see twice as much alcohol in that airspace. Now, the Intoxilizer machine, it makes an assumption. It makes an assumption that the partition ratio is 1 to 2100. What that means is, say you have 2100 molecules or parts of alcohol in your blood, you would find 1 part in your lungs. And the problem is that there's so much human variation, and not everybody has a partition ratio of 1 to 2100. And so for some unlucky people, when they blow into the machine is actually making a calculation which is totally inaccurate, and it can affect the breath alcohol concentration by 25%. Now, these are just a couple of things that we talk about in DUI trials, and the Intoxilizer machine has plenty of problems. I could go on and on about it. But just so you know, when people get arrested for DUI and they get that sheet, and they're looking at their result, and they think, oh, what am I supposed to do? There's this result. It's over the legal limit. How much trouble am I in? What I tell people is, let's look at the facts. Let's have our expert look at this particular machine. Let's see how it's operating, and let's see what we can do. So if you have any questions about a DUI case in Arizona, 602-989-5000 is our number. 602-989-5000. Thanks so much.